Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike here. Let's take a look at the field for race number 10 at Saratoga on Saturday. It's the Grade 2 Bowling Green, and I think it's the best betting race of the weekend. It doesn't have the big names of the horses in the Jim Dandy or the Alfred G. Vanderbilt, but it's a full field. It's wide open. It's evenly matched. I think we should all be looking for prices in here. Let's start with the number one, Arklow, for Brad Cox. And you and I are big fans of Arklow. He's banked $1.2 million. He just missed in the Man of War when I thought he was hemmed in on the rail at the quarter pole for just a second too long, because when he came out, he really fired in the stretch. Last time out, I can't complain about the ride Florent Giroux gave him. He was able to just save ground, waited patiently, shot up the rail, and that European, despite drifting all the way to the center of the course, was just a little bit better than he was at 2 miles.
Yeah, I found out it seemed like that European did want the 2 miles, maybe a little bit more, but Arklow ran really well that day. He also ran really well in the Man of War. Yes, the pace was there for him in the Man of War. They were flying up front, and he had a good setup to close into, and he closed. He ran a really good race. It does seem like he just keeps getting better as they stretched him out in distance. They stretched him out last summer, and he's just really found himself. He makes a ton of sense in this race, but as you say, this might be a race where you want a little bit of a better price. Arklow can win this race. I'm using him, but I picked someone else.
He's my second choice in this race. I know he can get any kind of trip. And breaking from this inside post, I'd expect Flo to try to find a similar spot as the Belmont Gold Cup, maybe get covered up all down on the rail. Formulator fact for Brad Cox, past 2 years, horses aged 4 and up, turf routes, 45 to 60-day layoffs, 15 for 37, $3.79 return on investment. Let's talk about the number 2, Sadler's Joy. He's probably the best horse in this race when he's right. The question is, what do we get off of the layoff? We have not seen him in the Breeders' Cup turf, and boy, I thought he ran great in the Breeders' Cup turf. He was so far back, and then he had to come real wide into the stretch, and then when the first two started drifting out, he had to alter course down towards the inside. I don't even think he likes cutting the ground that much, and he ran that well.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's funny because I think if you look at his last 3 starts, you might think, well, he was really tailing off there at the end of last year. I don't even know if I think that's the case, Dan. I think there are excuses to be made for this horse. He only went 1 for 8 last year, but I sort of feel like he might have been every bit as good as a 5-year-old as he was as a 4-year-old. Things just didn't really break his way. The past couple of years, they've been bringing him back much earlier in the year. I kind of liked that they gave him a little more time off this time. This horse never really got a break. He's got one now. I think he's going to run really well in this race. This is a great distance for him, but he will have to come from last. This is a very big field, and he always comes from way out of it. So a trip's going to be very important for him.
That's one of 2 concerns for me. The running style in a big and bulky field. Yeah. Second, is this just a prep for the sword dancer? Do they want to come into the sword dancer with 1 race under his belt ready to fire? But look at Tommy Albertrani's formulator fact. Past 5 years, horses aged 4 and up, 6-month layoff or greater in turf routes, 3 for 11, $10.96 ROI. He gets them ready to fire. Chad Brown, hey, he's represented by a few in this year's Bowling Green. The number 3, Yaprimo, won 3 in a row in his native Chile, including a couple of Group 1 stakes, now with Lasix for Chad.
Yeah, listen, he certainly, has run the best races of his life in his last 3 starts. We'll see what it translates to as he ships in here. These horses are always a tough call for me anyway, Dan. I would be more inclined to give this horse a bigger look if this wasn't such a good field. I mean, he's stepping into a really tough spot here.
Formulator fact for Chad, past 4 years, horses aged 4 and up on turf. Foreign shippers adding Lasix first for Chad, 18 for 46, $2.98 ROI. The 4 is Cacho and DA, a graded stakes winner last summer at Arlington. He's raced twice this year, tough spots both times, didn't run very well, and it doesn't get any easier.
Yeah, he's just in a really tough spot here. I mean, he's actually run some good races. At a big price in this race, you could do worse than maybe trying to get him in there somewhere. I couldn't see him beating this field, though.
I think stretching that out in distance is key for Channel Maker. 10 furlongs actually might be just a little bit sharp for him at this point in his career. But in the Manhattan, didn't Joel just move way too early? He made this big 3-wide move about 3.5 furlongs out, got within range of the leaders, and then here comes Bricks and Mortar and Robert Bruce, 2 of the top turf horses in the country. Channel Maker ran really well, I think, deceptively well in the Manhattan, and he was up close to that fast pace in the Man of War and still held Arklow's sway at the end. I think he's a good horse.
I think he's a good horse, too. He sort of turned his whole career around as well last year. And it was right up here last summer, actually, in this race where they started getting him more involved early. and it's really paid dividends for them. He's won 2 Grade 1 since then. This is a great distance for him. He'll be forward, but he doesn't need the lead. I think it's pretty hard to say who the horse to beat in this race is, though, Dan, but I think it might be this horse.
Highland Sky, the number 6, is a horse we usually try to make at a price, and he always seems to come up a bit short. Just never has found his form that he had when he was a 3-year-old and running second in races like the Belmont Derby. I looked at his race in the Pan Am 2 starts back at 1.5 miles, and he tried to alter out for room, and I wonder if that maybe cost him a placing or so when he still finished ahead of 3 next out winners. Last time out in the Belmont Gold Cup, he swung really wide into the stretch. He stayed on, although I think the 2 miles got to him in the last 16th. Yeah. I think this is an upset candidate at a big price because you can put him anywhere in the body of a race, and he has a couple of races on his form that make him competitive.
Yeah, all that stuff is true. I've gotten a little tired of trying to make him at big prices because I've done it several times. I'm not quite sure that he's good enough to beat this field, but as you say, if things break right, he's got a race in him that's going to put him very close.
This is a field full of old war horses. It's possible we've already seen their best races. It's possible we have yet to see the best. The number 7, Argon, 30-1 on the morning line. He's won his last 3 races, and Timeform US believes that he can make the lead. And he doesn't need the lead to win. He has rated successfully. But last time out, Junior Alvarado just got him right to the front, got him relaxed on an easy pace, and he sprinted on home. Junior fits this horse very, very well.
Yeah, he does. He was really sharp last time. He's won 3 races in a row, but last time he was really sharp, right to the front. He had control of that race throughout. And he just finished full of run in that race. This is a totally different ball game, Dan. I like this horse. I'm a fan of his. I think there's a chance he turns out to be pretty good. This is a super tough spot to step into.
Number 8, Zulu Alpha, 10-1 on the morning line on a multiple graded stakes winner. I mean, listen, you could do a lot worse than that. Last time out in the UN, I thought he had to move a little bit early. Channel Cat ranged up to his outside late on the backstretch, and I think that forced Channing Hill's hand to go a little earlier than he wanted to. That being said, he made the lead in the stretch, and it looked like he was home free. And I have to admit, I was a little disappointed that he gave it up at the end of that race. He was trying, but he just couldn't fend off Hunter O'Reilly. Is he the same horse that was so good last fall and into the spring?
Yeah, I think he is the same horse. He ran well last time. You know, I was disappointed that he didn't win last time, Dan. He ran well in there. I think that's a race, you know, in a grade 1 like that's a race he had to win. I think it was disappointing he couldn't do it. But listen, he's a very tactical horse. He can get a great trip in this race, and trips are going to go a long way in deciding the outcome here. Is he good enough? I don't know. I think this is a tough spot for him, but he's got a race that's going to put him close. I don't love him in here, Dan, but he could win this race.
You and I usually don't handicap jockeys, but I have to be honest with you. I think Julien Leparoux is going to fit Red Knight like a glove. He can get a horse covered up, get him to relax in the back of the pack, and get him to make one run. And that's what you need to do with Red Knight, because he will pull, as he did in the Belmont Gold Cup, where he made this very early 3-4 wide bid going into the second of 3 turns, another wide bid going into the final turn. And I think the 2 miles finally caught up to him with that extra ground loss last time. He is a dangerous horse for Bill Mott at 12-1.
I agree. I'm using this horse for sure. Not only did he get pulley and move too early last time, he did it in the Elkhorn. He did it in the Jerkins. 3 starts back at 2 miles as well. It's something that he has a bad habit of doing. But if he can get the right trip in this race, he is every bit as good as a lot of horses in here. I'm using this horse.
I think I'm making a mistake in not going back to Channel Cat, because you could argue, A, he was an underlay in the UN. I mean, what did he really do to be less than 2-1 in that race? And B, he did not have a good trip at all. And that Louis Saez had him 4 wide and on the move with about 3.5 furlongs left to go, and he was still punching on at the end of that race. He can get a good forward trip. He is going to be a much better price. But as a Channel Cat follower all of these years, I'm starting to get a little tired of his act.
Yeah, listen, he's a pretty lightly raced 4-year-old, though. He could still be improving, and, you know, maybe that's what you're looking for in this race. I personally didn't think he was good enough to beat some of these horses in this race. But as you say, he's going to be a much better price in this race than he was last time.
Olympico flew home in his North American debut over very soft ground in the Grade 3 Fort Marcy. You liked him a little bit in the Manhattan last time out. He was far back. He swung widest into the stretch. Looked like for a second at the 3/16 pole he was going to fire. He just finished evenly. Was it a case of he needs a little cut in the ground to be truly successful?
Yeah, I mean, it could be that. That's something you at least have to consider at this point. It was also, you know, just maybe a much tougher spot. He just couldn't make up any late ground in there. You know, I thought he ran fine. I think he'll have to do better than that. I guess the good news for him, if you like him and are expecting a rebound, it's been pouring up here. So this turf is probably not going to be, it won't be soft, but it's not going to be firm on Saturday.
12 is focus group. And did you and I overestimate focus group a little
Maybe.
bit last year because he was so good in his races at Saratoga, including that John's call? And we've been chasing him since then. Yeah, he won the Pan Am, but he got a beautiful trip to do so, and he only did it by a bob. Last time out in the UN, I thought there was enough pace in there for him. He came in the outside, and he just was one-paced.
Yeah, listen, if Hunter O'Reilly won, then you know there was enough pace in the race. I mean, he just couldn't get there. I thought he ran fine. I didn't think he ran great. I was disappointed in his Man of War 2 starts back because that was a strong pace and he never really fired. Yeah, I just think he just hasn't really stacked up when they've moved him up into these tougher grade 1 and grade 2 races.
Last but certainly not least is the number 13 bigger picture, who's banked over $1.5 million. He's won 13 times. At 8, he is still the same hard-hitting bigger picture as he always was. In the UN, Joe Bravo had him saving ground. He tried to alter course outside. That hole didn't materialize. He had to alter course back to. I don't really think he was ever truly clear in the UN. Yeah. It's not like he was really firing at the end of that race, but I didn't really think he was truly clear. My issue is, what kind of trip do you work out from out there?
Yeah, he's got a bad post in here, and he is a horse who it does feel like maybe his very best races are behind him. He's still good, as you say. He can still run a competitive race. I just feel like it's going to be tough for him if he doesn't get a perfect trip. How does he get a perfect trip from out there?
You could probably make a case for 8 of the 13 horses in this year's Grade 2 Bowling Green. We take a look at our top selections in here. I think your strategy is this. Sadler's Joy is 6-1 on the morning line, and he might be the best horse.
Yeah, I that's certainly part of it. I think he'll be a fair price in the race, and I know his good race is good enough. I'm going to give him a chance here to fire right off the layoff. I went 2, 1, 5, and 9. I'm definitely trying to get Red Knight in there somewhere, though, at a price. I think that horse has a big chance in here.
I want to see what Highland Sky can do. I am not happy that it's been raining at Saratoga. I don't think he is as comfortable on a soft turf course. I think his form is a little bit, I don't like to say dirtied up because it's not like he's had this ridiculous amount of trouble in his races, but I think he has run respectively for Barclay Tagg, and I know he's going to be an absolutely huge price. I think he's an interesting horse that you can fool around with to win, and in the multis, it's a spread. I went 6, 1, 5, and 8. In the Grade 2 Bowling Green, it is one of 3 graded stakes races at Saratoga on Saturday. Get involved with that DRF Bets account. Type in the promo code HELLO and start firing away. Approximate post time for the Bowling Green, 6:18 Eastern. Good luck.